The OM system OM-5 Mark II carries the legacy of one of the most impactful camera lines in history. The original OMD EM5, for me and countless others, was the gateway to Micro Four Thirds, a system that proved small cameras could deliver big results. Built as the perfect camera for any adventure, regardless of skill level, my expectations are seriously high when it comes to the OM-5 Mark II. Let's find out if the camera can truly live up to its legendary predecessors. Welcome, I'm Thomas Eisl, professional photographer and visual artist based here in Vienna, Austria. As a dedicated user of the original OM-5, my interest in this new model is substantial. For this in-depth review, I meticulously examined every aspect of the Mark II, from its technical performance parameters, which I've thoroughly tested in the lab, to its user experience and handling, and its extensive feature set. It is my assessment that the OM-5 Mark II holds a particularly significant position within OM Systems' current lineup. So without further ado, I invite you to join me on an adventure with the OM-5 Mark II. Design, ergonomics, usability and build quality. Those are all aspects of a camera which at the end of the day determine whether a camera ends up becoming my main tool for everyday photography or whether it ends up in a cupboard and finally on Craigslist. This is exactly the reason why I'd like to start this review with a chapter about exactly these characteristics of the OM system OM-5 Mark II. But I won't do that here in the forest. Instead, I've prepared an in-depth analysis for you in the studio with detailed product shots so that you can come to your own conclusion, while I enjoy some nature and photography with the OM-5 Mark II. Welcome back to the studio. The OM system OM-5 is a compact SLR-styled electronic viewfinder interchangeable lens camera. With a weight of only 424 grams with card and battery, it is truly a lightweight companion for every day. The chassis itself is designed around highly durable technical polymer elements, which comprise the outer surface areas of the camera itself. The OM-5 Mark II is available in 3 different colors, namely black, silver and beige. It is important to note that beige is actually a limited edition, and I've examined the color of the camera in detail, found that it is actually very close to RAL 1035, aka pearl beige. As I've personally tested the beige body, which I find is very beautiful indeed, I'd like to talk a little bit about some specifics of this limited edition. I found out that the beige body is actually not just a beige plastic covering, but some sort of layered polymer comprised of a black and beige layer. How do I know that? Well, during testing, my OM-5 Mark II took a very hard hit. I bumped it against concrete. But thanks to the unique ductility of the beige outer layer, the camera itself suffered no structural damage. Nonetheless, this bump revealed the 2-layer structure of the outer technical polymer elements of the OM-5 Mark II. What I'd like to highlight, and this is of course true for all OM-5 Mark II color variants, is the redesigned grip for way better ergonomics than the predecessor. With my OM-5 Mark I, I always attached a third-party metal hand grip, and That was just necessary to hold the camera comfortably for a prolonged period of time. Now, with the OM-5 Mark II, that is no longer needed, and I can work all day long without the need of an additional grip. It is quite a remarkable achievement given the fact that the camera did not really increase in thickness. It is just a redesigned grip, but a very well redesigned one, let me say that. What is also new is the top plate of the OM-5 Mark II. The surface itself is much more integrated, there are no more nooks and crannies, and that of course has many advantages. First and foremost, the camera is way easier to clean, and I really think that this new design language looks a bit more modern, it looks a bit more OM system, while the OM-5 Mark I still had a lot of Olympus design legacy in it. What is also new when it comes to the chassis is the fact that the camera no longer has a connector port at the bottom. In my opinion, it is not a loss, it fits the overall streamlined concept of the OM-5 Mark II, and the only thing that you have to keep in mind is that of course you cannot attach any additional grip with electronic contacts to the camera. With the OM-5 you could still do that. Being an outdoor camera, the OM system OM-5 Mark II is protected against the elements. It is actually IP53 rated, which means that it is dust and splash proof given the right lens attached, so all pro lenses and of course the new 25 and 70mm M-Suico primes. Overall, the camera is also freeze proof until -10 degrees Celsius. Nonetheless, it continues to function way below that. A true highlight for me is the excellent viewfinder of the OM system OM-5 Mark II. It is in fact the same viewfinder found in the much more expensive OM system OM-3. At the heart of this viewfinder sits an OLED panel with 2.36 million dots. And the true highlight is not really the panel, but the 27mm eye point. This, coupled with an adjustable magnification, you can either select 1.23 times or 1.37 times. The camera is ideal for those wearing glasses, be it optical or of course sunglasses. What I'd also like to add is that this long eye relief is perfect for every reportage photography assignment. It's just great to work with. I really like the viewfinder. Just as important as a good viewfinder is a camera's user interface. So let me examine a few highlights there. The OM-5 Mark II is equipped with the brand new menu system found in the OM-1 Mark II. This is a fully touch-enabled menu system with very clear structure and very easy to navigate. Also in the playback menu, you can now assign star ratings for all captured images, allowing you to cull your images in the field, a thing that I like to do a lot. Apart from the new menu system, veteran OM system users will be delighted to know that the classic super control panel is of course still there, and it works as good as always. Being fully touch enabled, the photographer can control all relevant camera features by just tipping on the back screen. It's a very efficient way, and of course you can also use the physical controls. Speaking about physical controls and buttons, they are almost the same as the ones found in the OM system OM-5 Mark I. To be more specific, this means that the camera has 12 buttons, of which 7 are freely configurable function buttons. There is one change compared to the OM-5 Mark I, and that is of course the new computational button. In reality, however, it is just the exposure compensation button found on the OM-5 Mark I with a new print on it. The new thing really is a firmware change. Now, by pressing this button, which can also be assigned to any other of these configurable function buttons I mentioned previously, you can access all the computational features of the OM-5 Mark II, much like you are able to access various camera functions via the multi-function submenu, which can also be mapped to a function button, and which is a classic feature found in older OM system cameras and of course also in the OM-5 Mark II. So what I also appreciate is that in order to control the autofocus point, you can either use the arrow pad at the back of the camera, but also the touch screen. In addition to these controls, you find one lockable exposure mode dial and two control dials, a front and a rear control dial. I'd also like to highlight the comfortable user experience the OM system OM-5 Mark II's two-stage shutter button provides. It really is very similar to the premium OM system OM-3. Before we conclude this chapter, let me highlight two other very welcome changes to the OM-5 Mark II compared to the OM-5. First and foremost, the viewfinder modes are now labeled and in line with the OM-1 series. For example, you can now find a night vision mode in the camera menu. Additionally, and that is really a new feature, the OM-5 Mark II is now capable of providing handheld assist. This is a visual depiction of the camera's gyro sensor, which allows you to handhold the camera for a prolonged period of time, especially in conjunction with the amazing image stabilization, but we'll talk about this feature later in the video. Now the bottom line here is, the OM-5 Mark II provides a streamlined experience and is now a camera that seamlessly integrates with OM Systems' existing OM-1 and OM-3 lineup. For the photographer, this means that you can get an OM-5 Mark II and use it without having to think about the different menu structure or overall handling, and that is great. Hello and welcome to Vienna early in the morning. In order to test the OM system OM-5's core system performance, I decided to take it out on a very challenging reportage photography trip, or to be more precise, a street photography tour through the inner districts of Vienna. Before we get started with that, let me note that the OM system OM-5 Mark II is powered by the TruePic 9 processor, which delivers overall very speedy performance. Whether it is camera functions or image playback, the OM system OM-5 Mark II is just very responsive. I've never encountered any lag whatsoever. I've already got the first shots while the city is still almost empty. Early morning is truly the best time for street photography. Be that as it may, let's talk a little bit about the OM system OM-5's exposure metering and white balance metering system. At first glance, it really looks like it is just the OM-5 Mark I, but at closer inspection it becomes obvious that the OM-5 Mark II's white balance metering system in particular is more like that found in the OM system OM-1 Mark II. In practice, this means more reliable white balance meter readings even under difficult circumstances like during street photography. Face detection in OM system cameras rarely disappoints, as this example showed. But let's talk a little bit about autofocus performance of the OM-5 Mark II in general. The camera is equipped with a 121 on-sensor phase and contrast detection autofocus system. This system is similar to what is found in the OM-5 Mark I and high-end cameras like the Olympus EM1X. There is only one difference when comparing this system to the one found in the EM1X, and that is that this camera does not feature OM systems subject detection modes, except, of course, the face detection algorithm I just mentioned. In practice, single autofocus, continuous autofocus, and continuous autofocus plus tracking all perform reliably in terms of precision, speed, and overall reliability. I'm very, very happy with the results I get out of the OM-5 Mark II, and I'm confident bringing this camera to any professional assignment in terms of reportage photography like weddings, but also for bird photography, insect photography, you name it. This camera is really up to the job, making it a perfect companion for really every situation. Of course, I tested the OM-5 Mark II's autofocus capabilities under the most challenging circumstances, namely wildlife and bird photography. One thing up front, of course, the OM-5 Mark II is not an OM-1 Mark I or OM-1 Mark II in terms of autofocus. That's, well, no surprise. But in the hands of the experienced photographer willing to learn how the OM-5 Mark II's autofocus system actually works, the camera delivers fantastic results. Unfortunately, Vienna's wildlife won't play nice today, and birds are mostly hiding or staying at a great distance. Be that as it may, I took the opportunity to capture some tech demo shots for you, because most of the birds in flight that I'm going to show you today are very small in the frame and were actually captured utilizing the OM-5 Mark II's tracking autofocus, so CAF plus tracking it was. Nonetheless, the light is so beautiful that I'll definitely take the opportunity to be on the lookout for some additional shots, so maybe I can get one or two keepers for the portfolio as well. I'd like to highlight one special feature which is often overlooked but found in all OM system cameras, of course also in the OM-5 Mark II, and that is zoom frame autofocus. This feature allows the photographer to adjust an autofocus area on the go without going into the menu, and this is a really neat feature, well, just for many situations where high precision but also a clearly defined autofocus area is paramount. Well, one more thing, and that is, of course, that the camera's autofocus system performs so well because it can be configured in depth by you. You can not only adjust things like continuous autofocus sensitivity, but you can also custom create autofocus targets which serve your need in the field. I personally really like the cross-type autofocus target for street and reportage photography. I got great results with this one today.
This is how you make me feel. This is how you make me feel. Oh, good, oh, great sunshine. Oh, baby, this is how you make me feel. And I feel good. I'm feeling good.
I just couldn't resist filming in front of this house, especially when wearing a shirt with matching color. But jokes aside, I'm not here to talk about my shirt or the color of houses, but I'm here to talk about the OM system's shutter unit and drive, as well as all associated performance parameters. First and foremost, I'd like to emphasize that the OM-5 Mark II uses the same mechanical shutter unit found in the OM-5 Mark I and the OM system OM-3. This means in practice that the mechanical shutter is capable of delivering 6 frames per second while performing open aperture, autofocus, white balance and exposure metering between each frame. That is indeed quite impressive and fast enough for capturing most moving subjects in a professional manner. If you need more frames per second, there is of course the electronic shutter, which allows you to capture 10 frames per second, again with open aperture metering in all 3 categories. Should you require even faster drive speeds, you can switch to 30 frames per second. The only disadvantage is that the camera locks autofocus, exposure and white balance at the beginning of the series. Now let's talk a little bit about the electronic shutter and associated performance parameters. The OM system OM-5 Mark II sensor boasts a readout speed of almost 1/60th of a second. This means that the electronic shutter modes are suitable for capturing almost all moving subjects distortion-free. Also, this allows you to sync OM system flashes at 1/50th of a second. That is just a limitation implemented by OM system, even though the actual readout speed is a bit faster, as I've just highlighted. Now, the best drive system is useless without a good buffer backing it up. And here is the really good news. The OM system OM-5 Mark II does not feature a good buffer, it features a great buffer. When capturing RAW up to 10 frames per second and selecting drive priority in the camera menu, you can capture images indefinitely. Well, at least until your card is full. So that is indeed very impressive. Overall, these specifications are in line with the OM-5 Mark I, except one notable difference, and that is the drive menu. Well, OM system changed the drive mode designations a bit so that they are now in line with modern OM system camera menus. Personally, I think that is a significant improvement, especially for people new to the OM system. For all those new to the OM system, I'd also like to highlight that, of course, the OM-5 is equipped with state-of-the-art pre-capture burst modes like Pro Capture. What this means in practice is that by half pressing the shutter button, you can capture frames before actually depressing the shutter button. You are filling up the buffer, and that, of course, helps you to not miss any critical moment. This works really well with the OM system OM-5 Mark II and is a great feature for all nature photographers and, of course, also for all sports photography, especially in a professional capacity. OM system cameras are well known for their high-end image stabilization systems, and the OM-5 Mark II, well, it's absolutely no exception. Quite the contrary, with its 6.5 EV of stabilization in the center of the frame with the IBIS only, and up to 7.5 EV of stabilization with a Sync-IS compatible lens, the OM-5 Mark II performs remarkably, giving you sharp and stable images under all circumstances. This is not only useful for special applications like macro photography or super telephoto photography, where the high magnification ratios make every camera movement quite visible, but it is also very useful for regular reportage photography, because as you can see, lighting situations can change quite quickly. Apart from that, the image stabilization system is also used for other camera features, like, for example, high-res shot, but more on that later. Just like a photographer needs a good cup of coffee to function properly, the OM system OM-5 Mark II needs battery power. And this battery power comes from the BLS 50 battery. This battery type was already employed in the OM-5 Mark I and other OM system and Olympus cameras. So photographers who already own an OM-5 Mark I or any of these other cameras can reuse their batteries. In terms of battery life, one charge is rated for 310 shots in normal operation, and this is of course tested according to CIPA standards. When using the OM system OM-5 Mark II's quick sleep mode, you can even get 640 shots. For a day of street photography, you should plan to bring along 2 to 3 extra BLS 50 batteries, and that is not a big deal, as these batteries are small and compact and fit every pocket. Apart from that, if you want to record video with the OM system OM-5 Mark II, you can expect 60 minutes of recording time with all camera functions according to CIPA testing conditions. That is, again, in line with my own personal experiences. Just like its predecessor, the OM-5 Mark II can be charged, so you can charge in camera, you do not have to bring an extra charger. Now with USB-C, the previous model still used the micro USB connector. Note that nonetheless, the camera is not compatible with USB-C power delivery. You might have noticed that the M-Suico 12 to 45mm f4 Pro didn't leave my camera body for today's shoot in the city. That's because it's really an excellent lens delivering stunning image quality at all focal length settings. Nonetheless, there might be situations which require the use of a different lens. And here comes another great feature of the OM system OM-5 Mark II. When changing lenses, I've got peace of mind that even if dust ends up on the sensor surface, it is reliably removed by OM System's supersonic wave filter. That is really a great feature to have in an outdoor and adventure camera, because not always are environments as clean as Vienna is at the moment. Another great feature for those planning the next trip to exotic locations is the OM System's built-in pixel mapping function, which also performs a full camera self-check. By using this function, you can rest assured that your OM system OM-5 Mark II performs at its best.
Caution: this part of the review includes hard data and scientific analysis. Viewer discretion is advised, especially if you prefer your camera reviews with more feelings and less facts.
When it comes to imaging performance of a digital camera, two aspects are key: the image sensor and the imaging pipeline. Unfortunately, both elements are not shared publicly by the manufacturer, so I had to do some serious testing to get to the bottom of it and to give you a very concrete assessment on how the OM-5 Mark II performs, not just compared to the OM-5 Mark I, but compared to all digital cameras. So let's get started. I can't wait to get a bit nerdy. What I'd like to put up front is that I found the sensor performance, the sensor's response, in other words, to be very similar to the OM-5 Mark I and the Olympus OMD EM5 Mark III. For example, if we look at the shadows, we see better signal-to-noise ratio in the blue channel than in red and green. Just a quick primer: signal-to-noise ratio is the ratio between the signal, meaning image data captured, and image noise, This metric defines a couple of things, from dynamic range to overall image quality. It is the number one metric to actually get clear data on how an image sensor works. So now that was the quick primer, and now back to what I found out. So as I said, the camera exhibits better signal to noise ratio in blue than in red and green. And this means that when you expose a photo and you push the shadows by a lot, so I'm talking about plus 5 EV of exposure compensation in the raw converter, it is possible that the shadows get a slight tint. Examining the peak signal to noise ratio, we get a value of 7. So just below 7 to be precise. And this is exactly the same as in the OM-5 Mark I and the OMD EM5 Mark III. So another indicator that those three cameras are indeed very similar. By the way, quick addendum here, all signal to noise ratio values are in log 2. So here are my deductions when it comes to the camera's imaging architecture. I'm pretty convinced by now that the camera uses a Sony IMX272 sensor. So that's an educated guess. What I'm almost certain about is that whatever sensor is in there is at least an IMX27 something series. And let me talk about this camera sensor series for a second. It is a classic micro four thirds sensor. I'd say it's even almost a legendary sensor, as it is rumored to be based on an original Olympus development, and its grandfather is actually the IMX270 found in the EM1 Mark II. My conclusion here is therefore that the OM system OM-5 Mark II has the same unique imaging pipeline found only in the OM-5 Mark I. Why? The OM-5 Mark I has an IMX27 series sensor with the ADC structure of the EM5 Mark III, but the processor of the EM1 III. And that is of course the case with the OM-5 Mark II as well. What does this mean? This means that the OM-5 Mark II features an excellent, unique combination capable of very high image quality, only surpassed by the very high-end micro four thirds cameras like the OM system OM1 and OM3. Now, of course, I've also conducted signal to noise ratio analysis at all ISO settings, and here are the results. Let me bring up a signal to noise ratio graph here. On the x-axis you see the log 2 values for the signal, meaning the exposure in f-stops, and on the y-axis you see the signal to noise ratio value. Again, the higher the better. So what do we see here? We see that up until approximately ISO 400 we get at least 12 stops of dynamic range with excellent signal to noise ratio. That is a fantastic value. If we increase the ISO up until approximately ISO 10,000, we still get 8 stops of dynamic range. In practice, this means low light is not an issue with the OM system OM-5 Mark II, as 8 stops of engineering signal to noise ratio are more than enough for all applications. In the introduction, I said that signal to noise ratio is the most important aspect of an imaging sensor, but of course there is also resolution. Nonetheless, modern imaging sensors provide so much resolution that in fact you got too much resolution, and the OM-5 Mark II is no exception to that. You get out of this camera an effective resolution of 5184 times 3888 pixels, which means 20.16 megapixel photographs. As only 6 megapixels are needed for all printing applications, 70% of resolution of the OM-5 Mark II are actually cropping reserve. If my assumptions are indeed correct and the OM system OM-5 Mark II uses an IMX27 series sensor, We can also deduct that the camera does not feature an optical low-pass filter. The sharp results I got in practice seem to underpin this. Now, let me come to a verdict for imaging performance of the OM-5 Mark II. First and foremost, we can definitely conclude that the OM system OM-5 Mark II has excellent resolving power. It also features impressive low light capabilities, which are more than good enough even for challenging applications. Last but not least, and that is something that I appreciate, is that the camera features a legendary sensor with a unique processing architecture. In practice, this means that the OM-5 Mark II delivers more image quality than one would ever need, regardless of application. I'm capturing high-resolution close-ups with the OM system OM-5 Mark II's high-res shot mode. To be precise, the OM-5 Mark II is equipped with two distinct high-res shot modes. Both modes composite multiple images in camera to give you high-quality results with unprecedented details, sharpness and clarity. Handheld high-res shot, which is the one that I'm currently using, delivers 50 megapixel images composited utilizing a motion compensating algorithm. The second mode, tripod high-res shot, requires the camera to be on a tripod and the subject to remain perfectly still. But then you are rewarded with images of 80 megapixel resolution and incredible color depth and overall detail. But as words cannot describe the true capabilities of the OM-5 Mark II's high-res shot modes, let me show you the image I just captured. Pretty impressive, right? Keep in mind that this was captured with the OM System 12-45 f4 Pro kit lens. Oh, and I almost forgot to tell you, I've set the ISO to 1600 because handheld high-res shot mode, just like tripod high-res shot mode, practically eliminates any image noise. But wait, of course I didn't show you the full image. Let me zoom out. Pretty impressive, right? You can get really high magnifications. But wait, that is still not the full frame as I've just captured it. Let me show you my real composition. Now I'd say this result is nothing short of amazing. Just imagine the sheer amount of image quality that you can get when utilizing a high-end professional-grade prime lens and the OM system OM-5 Mark II in tripod high-res shot mode. The sky is truly the limit. Two standout features of OM system cameras are of course focus stacking and bracketing. In-camera focus stacking boasts a very robust algorithm which compensates even for extensive camera movement. You can get high quality results even if you do not have much experience with focus stacking and focus bracketing in general. Additionally, you get all the single photos captured in the sequence as a backup, so you can always stack in post or select single images if anything went wrong. Additionally, of course, there is focus bracketing. The camera is able to capture up to 999 shots for post-production stacking. I'd like to highlight that both modes feature adjustable focus increments with automatic circle of confusion compensation, meaning that the camera is aware of the aperture you've set and adjusts the focusing distances accordingly. Very capable and definitely very useful in practice. High dynamic range scenes can be quite tricky to capture properly. The good thing is that the OM system OM-5 Mark II exhibits exceptional dynamic range of a little bit over 12 stops. Nonetheless, even though 12 stops are plenty even for scenes like this one right behind me, the results can look a little bit underwhelming. And the reason for that is an issue called tone mapping, or to be more precise, the lack of tone mapping. Because the dynamic range is stretched out over the limited container, which is your viewing device, be it the printer or whatever, the image just cannot show the full dynamic range of the scene. And this is exactly where OM Systems HDR computational feature comes into play. This is actually not just one computational feature, but multiple computational features built into one menu option. HDR1 and HDR2 capture a series of images at different exposure settings and composite them in camera to give you a tone-mapped JPEG image. As a backup, a non-tone mapped RAW image with regular dynamic range is saved as well. For the professional photographer or people who prefer tone mapping in post-production, you can also switch to a regular HDR bracketing mode with narrower or wider HDR brackets. Unlike the OM system OM-5 Mark I, the OM-5 Mark II now utilizes the electronic shutter for all HDR brackets. This of course eliminates any risk of shutter shock, but can come at a slight disadvantage when working under artificial light sources. As the OM-5 Mark II sensor readout speed is about 1/60th of a second. This means that if you get LED lights flickering at a certain frequency, well then you might get banding effects which will reduce the quality of the resulting HDR1 or HDR2 composite. Be that as it may, I'd like to emphasize that in practice I never really encountered this issue so far, but technically it's a possibility that you have to be aware of. To conclude, HDR1 and HDR2 as well as the professional HDR modes are true force multipliers, which further elevate the OM-5 Mark II status as a do-it-all camera. I'd also like to encourage you to try out HDR1 and HDR2 for your next garden party family portrait. You'll be surprised by the results, especially as the OM-5 Mark II utilizes a powerful motion compensating algorithm during the HDR stacking process. This might crop the image a bit, but even if you move the camera around, you still get a great HDR composite, which is the most important thing. While high-res shot, focus stacking and HDR are definitely my 3 favorite computational features of the OM system OM-5 Mark II, I'd also like to highlight the plethora of other features built into this small adventure camera. Let's start with LiveND. LiveND gives you a digital neutral density filter with a filter strength ranging from ND2 to ND16, which translates in an effective reduction in exposure of 1 to 4 stops. This is done by in-camera frame averaging, which also eliminates image noise in the final photograph. Then there are of course the various live exposure modes, easily accessible via the dedicated mode dial position B. Live bulb, lifetime and live composite allow you to watch the exposure develop in real time in front of your eyes, so that you can precisely decide when to end the exposure to get not just long time exposures, but also fantastic composite exposures for star trails, for example. A really versatile feature to have. Then there is also multiple exposure mode. What sounds quite boring at first glance is actually a full-blown RAW enabled multiple exposure mode with auto gain adjustment as an option. So really you get raw double exposure files in camera. That is truly great. Now let's move on to the digital teleconverter, a favorite of many wildlife and sports photographers. By just pressing a button, you get a 2x teleconverter engaged in stills mode and a 1.4 teleconverter engaged in movie mode. Not only does this bring subjects closer to you, the high quality upscaling algorithm in camera, by the way, ensures that you get excellent results even though you are actually cropping the frame. Pretty impressive. You have to try that once you have an OM-5 Mark II in your hands. Then there is also interval shooting, capable of capturing up to 999 images and even combining them into a movie all in camera. Keystone compensation allows you to correct aberrant lines digitally in camera. Now this feature is a non-RAW function, but as the set values are saved in the RAW file's EXIF data, you can bring the RAW file into OM workspace, retrieve the values and make fine corrections and export the file as desired. So there is really no limit to using this feature for your architectural photography. It's indeed not that easy to find a quiet spot here in the Wiener Prater, but I was able to find one in the park nearby. So what is the Wiener Prater? The Wiener Prater is of course Vienna's world famous amusement park, but enough talk about the Wiener Prater because I'm here to talk about the OM-5 Mark II's video capabilities, and there is indeed a lot to talk about. Let's start with recording options of the OM system OM-5 Mark II. First things first, they are exactly the same as in the OM-5 Mark I in terms of resolution and frame rate options. Let me list those really quick. You can record Cinema 4K with a frame rate of up to 24p using long GOP. If you switch to 4K, you can record long GOP with a frame rate of 29.97p. Full HD with all intra is available with frame rates of up to 29.97p. Switching to Full HD long GOP allows you to record with a frame rate of 59.94p. And last but not least, you can also record Full HD long GOP with 120p, but then the camera has to apply a slight crop. All of these recording options were tested in the studio and outside. I've never found the camera to overheat or run into any recording limit. When it comes to available color profiles, the OM system OM-5 Mark II has a lot to offer. First and foremost, you can choose all the color profiles available in stills photography mode. You can even pick the art filters, but some of them might come with a frame rate limitation. For example, I found some to be limited to 29.97 frames per second. There are quite some movie picture profiles available as well. First and foremost, there is the flat profile, which is ideal if you want to color grade your footage later, but you don't want to deal with a log profile. Of course, if you want to deal with a log profile to capture the full dynamic range of the excellent sensor of the OM system OM-5 Mark II, you can record in OM log 400. And even though the footage is recorded in 8-bit, I never found that to be an issue in color grading. In fact, with my other OM system cameras, I frequently record OM log 400 in 8-bit because it's just that good. Now, two new movie picture modes were included with the OM-5 Mark II. Just like the OM-3, the camera is now able to record OM Cinema 1 and OM Cinema 2. Those two profiles are basically color-graded variants of the OM log 400 profile. This means that you can capture the same dynamic range that you get with OM log 400, but you've got a color grade applied already. That's a great option if you want to capture finished footage for use on social media or even for creating just that special OM Cinema 1 or OM Cinema 2 look. When it comes to internal audio recording, the OM-5 Mark II is very capable, just like all other OM system cameras in that regard. Of course, you can record audio utilizing the built-in stereo microphones. The quality of those is surprisingly good, but of course for professional applications you want to use an external mic which can be plugged in via the audio in port. This port is also able to supply a microphone with power should that be needed. Now let's be a bit more specific when it comes to audio quality. The camera can record in stereo linear PCM at 24-bit with a sampling frequency of 96 kHz, which gives you high fidelity audio directly in camera. I found the preamps in the camera to be of high quality, so really recording high fidelity audio in camera is indeed an option even for professional applications. The lighting situation is almost perfect, so it's about time to get started. I could now bring out my HDMI recording monitor and record video directly to it via the OM system OM-5 Mark II's HDMI Type D port. There are two options available. You can send either the video signal only or all the overlays to the monitor. That's very convenient indeed. Also for professional applications, you've got the option to send time codes to the monitor via the HDMI connection. Now I'd say it's about time to get this movie camera rolling. Two things I learned from filming with the OM-5 Mark II. First and foremost, I love filming with the OM-5 Mark II, which is not what I would have expected, as I'm used to professional grade cameras like the OM-1 for my filming work, but the OM-5 Mark II is really great to use as well. And second, what I especially appreciate is the combination of the OM-5 Mark II's sensor with the OM Cinema 1 profile. It's just a very unique look in my opinion. Now, one remark regarding OM Cinema 1. This profile applies some sharpening. I've zoomed in, I've examined it, especially I've examined the moving parts in the footage, and I'd say it is a very good sharpening algorithm, and it's only very slightly sharpened. Always keep in mind that OM Cinema 1 is intended as ready-to-use footage. Now let's talk a little bit about the movie image stabilization of the OM-5 Mark II. First and foremost, you can use the camera's stabilized sensor, of course. Additionally, you can enable the electronic stabilizer. What I found in practice is that it produces almost no artifacts or jitter. Many of the scenes you just saw were indeed recorded using both the electronic and the mechanical stabilizer of the OM-5 Mark II. And usually these electronic stabilization algorithms fall apart when you've got subject movement and camera movement combined. Then you usually get strange artifacts, especially if you examine the footage close up in post-production. But with the OM-5 Mark II, well, nothing like that happened. So I'm pretty pleased. What I'm not so pleased with is the fact that unlike in the OM3 and OM1, you cannot customize the movie image stabilization feature. So in the OM3 and in the OM1, you can set the sensitivity, which is a great addition when you plan on doing panning shots or when using the camera on a gimbal and you want to leave the movie image stabilization on. But with the OM-5 Mark II, you cannot do it. I understand that it is not there, as this is a feature that can confuse people, but nonetheless, for professional users like myself, I would have wished this to be there. In all fairness, I have to admit that I didn't encounter any issues, even though I wasn't able to configure the movie image stabilization. So even when doing panning shots, the camera noticed that and changed the stabilization accordingly. So overall, it works nonetheless. I would have appreciated these features to be there nonetheless. Even though I filmed most of the footage through the viewfinder, I was pleased to find that the 3-inch vari-angle swivel type monitor was there for those hip level shots. I just wanted to mention that because this monitor type is not only great for selfies, but also for filming. Now, before I conclude this chapter about the OM-5 Mark II's video performance, I'd like to highlight two limitations of the camera. First and foremost, unlike the OM-1 Mark I and II and the OM-3, the camera does not feature a zebra pattern overlay for setting the exposure. So either you have to use an HDMI monitor with this functionality built in, or you have to rely on the camera's histogram. The problem with the histogram really is that it can be difficult to judge the amount of clipped areas and their exact location in the frame. So this is not a sufficient substitute for a true in-camera zebra overlay. Then there is a small addendum when it comes to HDMI. If you use an HDMI monitor, you have no Cinema 4K or 4K clean output via the HDMI port. This means that the camera operator is expected to record this type of footage in camera instead. It's a minor limitation, but I wanted to mention it nonetheless. But let's close on a positive note and let me highlight two features of the OM-5 Mark II. First, the camera has vertical video, so it recognizes the camera orientation, and then you get video with the right orientation for your next Instagram story, which is of course very useful. And also now the autofocus assist light can be enabled as a recording lamp, much like in the OM system OM-3. And the good thing is that you can also turn this feature off, so if you film very close, you can get reflections from the recording lamp. But yeah, as you can disable that in the menu, there is no downside to that. Well, one mode I'd also like to highlight, which is kinda part of the video functionality of the OM-5 Mark II, is the webcam mode. This camera is one of the best webcams on the market in my opinion. You just have to plug in the USB-C cable and then basically select webcam from the menu. You are ready to go. You get the resolution of 720p, so meaning 1280 times 720 plus audio via USB-C. But the real highlight here is that the camera receives just enough power via the USB-C connection that it basically lasts indefinitely. It seems that the OM-5 Mark II, just like the OM-5 Mark I, uses some sort of special low power mode when in webcam mode. Of course, if you want higher resolution for your next stream, you can just use the HDMI output and go for it. The OM system OM-5 Mark II's feature set is so extensive that all the highlights that I'm going to present to you right now are actually worth their own video. Be that as it may, I want to be as short and as concise as possible, so let's get started with an overview over my other highlights of the OM-5 Mark II. Let's start with my favorite, the in-camera RAW editing functionality. The OM-5 Mark II is equipped with a full-blown RAW editor, which allows you to adjust exposure, white balance, color profile. You can crop the image, you can also change the color space and much more. After you are done with editing, you can send the photo via the excellent OI Share app directly to your Android or iOS device for sharing on social media or even for professional editing on your device. Additionally, the OI Share app, which not only provides very stable connection, also allows you to remote control the camera. Very useful. Additionally, speaking about remote control, The camera is also equipped with a dedicated remote control connector, which is very useful if you shoot time lapses, for example, on an automatic camera slider. Then you want a generic remote control connector input port, and the OM-5 Mark II has it. If you want to use dedicated OM system equipment, you can of course use your RMWR1 or RMWR2 Bluetooth triggers with the OM system OM-5 Mark II. What I'd also like to highlight is that the OM-5 Mark II is equipped with the sophisticated flash metering system found in the flagship OM system OM-1 and OM system OM-3. This system is not only reliable, it is also beginner friendly, but can be scaled for professional applications. It is just very versatile and definitely a great addition to the OM-5 Mark II. Last but definitely not least, I'd like to highlight that the OM-5 Mark II is the most beginner-friendly camera in OM Systems lineup, which also doubles as a professional model. Why? Because the camera is equipped with a sophisticated auto mode, which allows you to just snap a photo, even if you have no idea how photography works whatsoever. If you are stepping up from this smartphone type of photography, you can utilize the extensive selection of scene modes. Just select what you are photographing and the OM system OM-5 Mark II will set certain parameters for you, and you can get started even with complicated genres like nightscapes or backlit portraits. These beginner-friendly features are, in my opinion, truly force multipliers and great for everyone starting out and for the occasional situation where you as a professional photographer hand the camera to someone who has no idea how cameras work. You can just set the auto mode and still get the family snapshot that you were looking for, but with you in the frame. The verdict is clear. The OM system OM-5 Mark II is a highly capable camera. Much like its predecessor, it truly excels as a travel, reportage and adventure camera. In some areas, like eye relief, it is even the market leader. Thanks to sensible refinements, like the new streamlined menu and improved video recording capabilities, I can also confidently recommend it as a robust and dependable backup and B-roll camera for professionals working with an OM-1 or OM-3. In summary, for anyone who doesn't yet own an OM-5, the Mark II is an easy and compelling recommendation. For owners of the Mark I, while an immediate upgrade isn't strictly necessary, the refinements presented here make a strong case for consideration. Indeed, I find myself contemplating an investment in the limited beige edition, even though I already own two OM-5 Mark I bodies. Thank you for your time and attention. If this video proved valuable, I invite you not only to subscribe, but also to consider supporting the channel. You can do so by shopping through my affiliate links, making a direct donation, or ideally by becoming a channel member. A modest contribution unlocks significant benefits, including exclusive access to the Photographic Atelier. In its current issue, for instance, I meticulously detail every menu item and share my precise setup for the OM-5 Mark II to achieve peak performance. I appreciate your consideration. Until next time.